Hi all, welcome to AAT Genius, the exclusive online learning experience. I am Suranjith Rathnayake, your lecturer for Business Mathematics and Statistics, in short form BMS. Today I am going to deliver you the introduction and the contents of this subject. So before moving into the chapter-wise chapter explanation, let me tell you something about this subject. Business Mathematics and Statistics is a very fundamental and needful subject for this type of professional qualification. Almost all the professional qualifications in the world have this type of subject in their fundamental level or the basic level, because in business courses, in professional courses, we are talk about and we are dealing with commercial organizations, and in commercial organizations there are some factors like customer perspective, internal perspective, learning and growth perspective, and mainly the financial perspective. Most of the time we are talking about commercial organizations. So commercial organizations, the main focus is making profit. So therefore, making profit means we are talking about values and figures. So in this type of studies, you should know the basic and comprehensive knowledge of business mathematics. So not only the foundation for all the level, and also in your future studies like degrees and MBAs, you will get the help of business mathematics and statistics subjects. And you can see in my right hand side the contents of this subject. So there are mainly 7 chapters. So all 7 chapters will be tested in your examination. Alright, now let's move to the chapter-wise chapter introduction. Right, let's look at the first chapter, Fundamental Concepts of Mathematics. In this chapter, a number of basic concepts are introduced that are fundamental to many areas of business mathematics. This includes solving problems using ratios, proportions, markups, margins and percentages, etc. Then gives knowledge from basic to advanced calculations regarding sequences and progressions. The weight of the chapter is 15% of the entire syllabus. I think you have heard these topics in your O-level examination. So very familiar chapter. At the end of each topic, you should be able to identify and apply basic mathematical skills, apply mathematical concepts to solve problems using ratios, proportions, markups, margins and percentages, calculate impact and variations of number related to business scenario, identify and solve the quantitative variables involved in business scenarios, identify the differences sequences of numbers occurring in business problems and solve using algebraic expressions, and finally explain inequities and identify inequities using a graph. Now move to chapter number 2, Financial Mathematics for Business. Financial mathematics is the application of mathematical methods to financial problems. This chapter extends the use of mathematics and look at aspects of financial analysis typically undertaken in business organizations. In general, financial mathematics deal with problems of investing money or capital. If a company or an individual investor puts some capital into investment, a financial return will be expected. The chapter starts with interest. So you know up to now the simple interest and compound interest, the differences between simple interest and compound interest, the effective annual rates. Then move to much advanced major techniques of financial mathematics called discounting, annuities, perpetuities and net present values. At the end of each topic, you should be able to identify the basic financial mathematics concepts, explain the difference between simple interest and compound interest, and calculate simple and compound interest, calculate effective interest rate, calculate present values and future value of cash flows, calculate the terminal value of investment plans and size of the investment, calculate the present value of annuity, calculate present value of perpetuity, calculate and interpret the net present value, or in other words NPV, prepare a loan amortization schedule, and finally apply interest for borrowings. So there are 10 skills you should be able to develop after studying this lesson. Chapter number 3, financial operative measures for business. So this chapter describes differentiation and integration, which helps to analyze the rate of change of a function and allows optimal value to identify. A function is a way of describing certain type of quantitative relationships mathematically. This chapter aims to provide a clear understanding, and the algebraic and graphical presentation aims to provide a clear understanding and the algebraical and graphical presentation of the more common financial operative measures that are used in business to measure the performance of the business. So what are the learning outcomes? At the end of each topic, you should be able to identify linear and quadratic functions, apply linear and quadratic functions relating to revenue, cost and profit in the graphical form, demonstrate the use of differential calculus to obtain marginal revenue, marginal cost, total revenue and total cost, calculate the break-even point, and finally calculate the profit maximizing or cost minimizing output level and price. Chapter number 4, data presentation and descriptive measures. An accountant is someone who regularly deals with statistical information. So therefore, he must study how to analyze numerical information and how to deal with them. Subject of business statistics is a learning about statistical information. So in this chapter, we deal with the assumption of data, how to collect data and how to organize and present such data. So this will give an idea of what method is most appropriate way to present data in a report prepared by an accountant. So what are learning outcomes? At the end of each topic, you should be able to identify the data and information and explain differences of them, explain different sampling methods, draw presentation of frequency distribution, prepare graphs, charts, diagrams and tables to communicate information, calculate the central tendency measures, that is mean, median and mode, of ungrouped or grouped data and explain their relevance in business. Discuss the impact of skewness on central tendency, calculate measures of dispersion, finally explain the relationship between standard deviation and variance. Alright, chapter number 5, comparing two quantitative variables. This chapter discusses the general nature and purpose of the strength of the relationship between two quantitative variables known as correlation and explains a technique to measuring correlation. So also it discusses how to provide a mathematical equation that describes the relationship to quantitative variables, which is known as regression. The coefficient of determination is used as a guideline to measure the accuracy of the regression model. So what are the learning outcomes? At the end of each topic, you should be able to identify the different types of correlation, draw a scatter diagram, calculate and interpret Pearson's correlation coefficient, identify the regression line using the freehand method or least square method, calculate coefficient of determination, assess predictions obtained by regression equation, and finally interpret regression analysis output. Now chapter number 6, some familiar chapter, seniors, but some new parts added to the chapter number 6. So probability and its applications. So probability is the method of quantitative estimating uncertainty. The probability is the method of quantitative estimating uncertainty. The subject of business statistics often comes to conclusion under uncertain circumstances. So therefore, it is important to assess its uncertainty. This will help you to understand the success of your decision. At the end of each topic, you should be able to describe concepts and laws of probability, calculate simple and conditional probabilities using the formula, tree diagram and Venn diagrams and interpret them, calculate expected value and variance for discrete probability distribution, explain normal distribution and calculate the probability of the standard normal distribution, apply normal probability distribution, identify central limit theorem, and finally calculate the probabilities with central limit theorem. And chapter number 7, the last chapter, or lucky 7. So have you heard about index numbers? So probably you have heard consumer price index, Milan price index, all share price index like. So therefore the name of this chapter is index numbers and forecasting. So index numbers provide a standardized way of comparing values over time of commodities such as price, volume of output and wages. They are used extensively in various forms in business, commerce and government. In this chapter, we will try to provide a basic understanding of indexes as well as how to classify them. The first is classified into single commodity and group of commodities. Later we discuss how to calculate weighted indices for group of commodities. Also discussed how to calculate the most widely used, the Laspeyres and Parsh's indices. At the end of each topic, you should be able to calculate price and quantity relatives, simple aggregate and weighted aggregate indices and interpret them. Explain the components of time series, calculate the trend using least square method or moving averages, calculate seasonal indices for multiplicative method, and finally assess forecast using time series model. I hope you got some idea about what is this subject after went through all the contents of this subject called business mathematics and statistics. So always I expect my students to get something more than the average mark. Or I want you to be extraordinary. So please be with us, stay with us and join with my lessons, and I will guarantee you with a high mark or super A.